Hi there, I'm Daud So, and this is my presentation for Theories of Architecture Assignment 1, a descriptive analysis assignment I call Critiquing SDA. For today's agenda, what is the design behind the School of Design? First, let's discuss the architect. Who was the brain behind the beauty? Then, let's go to the facade. What does a glimpse provide? Third, spaces and areas. What makes SDA so odd? Fourth, eyesore or apple of my eye. Fifth, it's linear but hardly a straight line. Sixth, form follows function. These are the 6 topics that we'll run through as we discuss this presentation that I've prepared for today. De La Salle College of St. Peniel, the School of Design and Arts, is one of the extraordinary pieces of art that stand out in Manila. Seeing its facade for the first time, it can turn your head upward and wondering every detail it has. That's why it can be described as one of the most amazing buildings in this country because of its distinctiveness. It is very distinguishable with its features, though the location was a parking space before. It is also the 3rd largest and most advanced campus in the country. I think it looks like a spaceship, perhaps an inverted computer or printer, and even its top view is associated to a type of gun. But whatever the architect idea is, the building is really stunning. Just a few questions a person would mind if he saw the structure is, how did the architect come up with such a masterpiece? Now, I think before we dissect the structure, we should acknowledge the brains, the man, the architect. Who is the person behind this massive site? The architect of that edifice, architect Eduardo Calma, has high standards and quality in designing buildings like the quality of education he had. He studied at the Pratt Institute in New York for his bachelor's degree and his master's degree at Pratt International Studies. Now, to better understand the architect, let's know that he was trained as a postmodernist and inspired to it. He is a very talented designer who is in love with the myriad rectilinear forms and curves. For him, curving symbolizes the icon of adventure, and this adventure is a reaction to the concept of creating freedom to his works. Applying all of these aptitude in design, he did a magnificent architecture that shocks the country, the School of Design and Arts. Now, my assumptions are that the walls are inspired by crumpled paper, as you can see with the weird angles that it has. The white walls are meant to inspire creativity by mimicking a blank canvas, and the aesthetic was industrial and modern to shine among the suburbs. Now let's look at these highlights. The School of Design and Arts is definitely an ambitious project which costed around 1.2 billion pesos over the 3 years of construction. It is said to be the jewel in the crown of De La Salle University System Schools by Brother Armin Luistro FSC. So it features building management system which controls its air conditioning, smoke detection, and fire alarms. It has CCTV, a surveillance security system, and has had its own sewage management plan upon construction. It is also fully Wi-Fi enabled and the first building in the Philippines to be equipped with 10G technology. It is 14 stories high with an anti-contextual modern design. When we talk about this, we look at it as if we're in front of it. And when we see SDA, we wonder how different it looks from its surrounding environment. It doesn't look like how the suburbs look. It doesn't have the same facade as the neighboring schools, and it doesn't have that same build that most of the commercial buildings has, but it does have that industrial, urban, modern look to it. Besides that, the sloping ground creates an elevation for the structure. The sloping ground serves as the drop-off part for the structure. It was designed with ribbon elements to create harmony within the ground. It also functions to create partition along the drop-off. The outdoor stairs are located on its right side so that the students interact in one way for them to appreciate the beauty of the facade at a certain angle. The facade composes of a lot of elements of design that are extremely catchy to the eyes. It is a cantilevered part 4 floors from the ground. It is around 3 stories high and functions as a theater. Now, the SDA building is a 14-story academic complex, coming in as the largest and most advanced TLS CSB campus. Initially, upon entry, I thought it was one of the most impressive buildings I've seen in the Philippines so far, and personally, I like modern architecture. It established visual interest with a sophisticated facade in aluminum cladding, full glass curtain wall, and intricate, multifaceted details. It is considered as one of the most dazzling landmarks in Manila's cityscape. There is a glass beside it that leans towards the stairs so that the people who will go there will focus on their reflection at the glass. During night, my favorite part, it looks like a lantern, which I would compare to the Louvre in Paris. It is made of steel frames that holds the glass. It is also supported by steel beams inside. Beside the stairs are deconstructed areas for the generating units and guard house. The building has its uniqueness and irregular floor plans, and every floor functions depending on the program of design of the students. The School of Design sits at the horizon like a lantern at night. The design of the school utilized natural light during the day and synthetic lighting at night for its overall aesthetic appeal. The ground floor serves as the lobby and the waiting area for students who will use the elevators. There are 5 passenger elevators and 2 service elevators in the building. You consider that the elevator system is one of the behavioral patterns of the users. Since the building is a high-rise and the users are students, it is a must that he should place elevators or else the building will be rendered not functional. As I go around the area, I notice the imbalance of spaces which complements along the ceiling. The space that extrudes above the lobby is the compartment for the chapel. Throughout the entire building, we'll notice that imbalance or asymmetry is evident among different floors to show the diversity and variety of courses, users that will enter the building. Now, the other characteristics of the interior is that along the elevator lines are the balustrades above it, which is made of concrete and glass. There is an interesting perspective view there that creates a descending picture. Along the mezzanine floor are the chapel and parking area. The chapel is very unique in its interior and interprets a modern way of early catacombs. The furniture is deliberately created, and even the cross. Instead of putting a cross, which is made out of marble, the architect used the same materials that he used in chairs and the altar, which is steel. The yellow light creates a warm feeling and belongingness to God. The ceilings are folded to create a perfect acoustics for the Mass. In the third, it covers the clinic and the parking area again. The counselor's office and computer laboratories are in the 4th floor. When it comes to 5th and higher, these floors serve as the compartment for the students to do their behavioral tasks. I personally like how the architect intentionally designed the walls of each room angled to have better acoustics and spacious open-air corridors wide enough to double as exhibition spaces. However, some of the windows are fixed, thus allowing little amount of water to enter during typhoons. I mainly think that the interior is good for a modern design, but they were a bit too plain for an art school. The 5th floor is for the industrial design and production design students. It also covers the theater, which is the interior of the cantilevered part of the facade. It comprises of 558 seats with perfect acoustics within the interior. Along the left side at the end, there is an open part with the purpose for natural ventilation. The rooms have laboratory apparatuses for each specific program. By now we understand that spaces are designed specifically to suit the needs of its users. and its users are assigned per floor. The 6th floor is the music production and filmmaking. It also covers the dance studio for ballet, and the 7th floor is composed of rooms with drafting tables for interior design and architecture students. It also covers the Learning Resource Center, sound production, and computer laboratory. The 8th also comprises of the extension for the Learning Resource Center, which is called the Commons. This floor is for the fashion design students. The 9th and 10th are for the general subjects. 11th is for the multimedia arts and animation students. Most of the rooms are computer laboratories because the program uses high technology equipment for the course. As I've mentioned earlier, there's a floor where there's the LRC and the Commons, which shares basically one area but has two different functions, which shows how SDA has a tendency to merge two things as well to show a little bit of contrast. Now, we see that spaces dictate the features that show in the facade, because along the 12th floor is the cafeteria, which is an area that has a big glass window for a wall that sweeps a view of Metro Manila. The cinema can occupy 105 seats, the student lounge, and the other rooms where general subjects are there, although there is no 13th floor because superstitious beliefs dictate that. Anyway, at the 14th floor, there are areas for faculty and staff of the building. There are several rooms there. Within the interior are the uncolored floors. Architect Calma used non-colored floors because art students tend to use a lot of medium in their artworks, and this medium may get scattered on the floor. He also created spacious hallways that could be used as exhibition halls. The question I have for my analysis is it an eyesore or is it an apple of the eye? Now, beauty is subliminal in the case of SDA. To the untrained eye, it's grand, extravagant, and as a statement of an esteemed educational institution. Initially, as a former incoming frosh, I was excited to explore the building and snap pictures of all of its corners and edges. But one can say that to its users, certain aspects of design and structural engineering are up for debate. A space, when discussed in architecture, is synonymous to an experience. When we create a design, we envision and build a vision that will serve as an overall sensory experience to its user. Meaning, from the acoustic to the lighting, the air conditioning, even how the chairs are meant to be laid out matters. Certain classrooms are great for their course, but some have been overstuffed with drafting tables, which make them cramped. Those that are in the 4th floor classrooms next to the parking area are dim, cold, and lack the subliminal beauty of the floors above. This is because that may not have been the initial plan. As I mentioned earlier, floors are designed and designated for specific uses, giving us an opportunity to witness the organization hierarchy set for it. Now, with spirituality being assigned closest to the lobby as a statement that the institution is connected to the Brothers of La Salle and Benilde orders. When we see that the hallways spread out like a line from the core of the building, we become part of the relationship of the rooms to the rest of the body. When we see why the floors are bare and the walls are white, we understand that the quality of surfaces are both of practicality, where we assume the worst, and of creativity, where we are meant to be inspired. Although there are leaks along the windows and walls, which are eyesores, it's the wide hallways and large windows that allow us as walking bystanders to feel a sense of relief from the cramped spaces of Manila itself. The circulation of the uppermost floors are a clear distinction from the tightness of the sidewalks and lanes of Manila. To the untrained eye, SDA with its odd shape may seem like the apple of the eye by being the epicenter of attention. But some may beg to differ. To me, its asymmetrical shape, its combination of rough and smooth textures, both on its face and interiors, make SDA an eyesore because of how it bombards you with details. In fact, as I mentioned, an industrial building placed next to some suburbs and a traditional Catholic school, it does kind of look anti-contextual. It forms a contrast with its environment, from the dark gray suit that stained the streets of Pio Campo to its off-white and glass features. However, I think SDA was meant to grab attention, hence the final design. SDA is linear but hardly a straight line. SDA follows a linear organization because, as seen through its circulation, there's a visible series of forms arranged in a row. From the core, which is the elevator, the hallway spread out in two directions, as if mimicking the way we travel along Pio Campo, rushing from one agenda to another. It's noteworthy that the rooms are arranged with an offset from the last, so that while you travel along the hallway, you get a peek of each room having its regular routine. With this layout, we recognize the growth and creation placed into it, giving it a rhythm, a physical manifestation of a genius loci, the spirit of a place. As if we travel through its corridors, we feel the site's distinctive atmosphere. The phenomenology that this place has a spirit that entwines with those that pass through it. Something you'd think you'd only get in a heritage site, but in this case, no. It has a modern style, but it still maintained the brand of the De La Salle system, as if you added modernism to the white facade of its original Taft building brother, and giving a distinguishable energy to each floor. Today, the SDA building maintains its sustainability and aesthetics. It is not visible to some sort of angle because there is a condominium that covers the view at its left and right perspective. But if this building will be explored, then it can objectively be described as sublime because of the form that follows its function. SDA is an ideal example of this principle because of its architecture and industrial design in general. Its very shape primarily relates to its intended function. We see this on how the cantilever at the front perspective is supposedly the cinema with its sloped setting arrangement. We know that the louvers were placed at the direction that's most likely to be hit by wind direction. But it also provides the rear end, a side that is least likely to be noticed, a visual inertia from the geometry that is projected from these louvres, blanketing the walls and the orientation it achieves from the different levels of embossed walls. If we talk about the height, we see that the structure has a vertical design to accommodate several degrees in one lot. Figuratively, one can speculate that the height was meant to leave an impression on those who belittle art students and Benildians, leaving them in awe instead. It does that as if it was necessary to be an action to crush the social pressures Benildians receive from the stereotypes placed onto our backs. To end this presentation, I would like to say that SDA is odd, but I considered it home. So, animo Benild.